Hello, Tim from Fairplay now on the 24th of June 2022, and yep, I'm back today. I don't know what you thought of me yesterday. I looked quite a lot prettier than I normally do, didn't I? But in all seriousness, a couple of things have caught my eye in the last 24 hours or so. Well, first of all, I made a bit of a mistake the other day in one of my videos when I said the first payout was given to the Scottish scaffolder. Apparently that's not the case, although I think he is getting some money, but it's been revealed this week that the first recipient was this lady who I think she was either the wife or girlfriend of a guy who passed away from you know what, and I can't remember their names, but they were like this real kind of rock and roll looking type of couple, with sort of both with long dark hair and loads of tattoos down their arms. So that couple, and sadly the gentleman there passed away I think around this time last year or just over, after having one of the things. And for all those people who thought that the treatment I'm talking about wasn't a problem, and that it was all everything I was talking about was just one big conspiracy theory, well, it's one of those things that's come true, and it's so much of a problem that the government have been forced to set up this compensation scheme, and having now to start paying out, I think, £120,000, which is what this lady got for the death of her partner. And I should think many more of those will be forthcoming and be paid out as we move forward. So yeah, far from safe and effective, isn't it? The second thing, and this is the kind of going into politics, the by-elections, which we had two of here in England, one at one end of the country, Wakefield, and the other way down in the West Country, Honiton and Tiverton, I think the constituency's called. The Wakefield one, the Tories lost that seat. It went back to Labour after the Tories sort of won it in 2019. And the most shocking one was sort of Honiton and Tiverton, where a massive Tory majority of 24,000, and it's a very safe Tory seat, and that has not only been overturned but comprehensively overturned by the Lib Dems, who now have a majority of 22,000. So that's a massive shift away from the Conservatives over to the Lib Dems. And when you consider that that was a very safe Tory seat, yeah, I think the Conservatives and Johnson must be sort of in a very poor emotional and mental state sort of right now, I'd have thought. So I thought that was very interesting, and it just shows you the level of discontent there is with Johnson. And actually, going back quickly to the lady who got the compensation payout, that was, believe it or not, reported on by the BBC. So they are actually beginning to report on certain problems with a certain treatment, pretty much for the first time. Okay, they kind of put on a very mainstream slant to it, but yeah, it is a move in the right direction that they are being forced to report on these things now. Anyway, so I've talked about politics here a little bit, and I'm just going to finish this up because a couple of weeks ago I had a bit of a sleepless night, and I woke up early, and about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I just couldn't get back to sleep. So as you do in certain, that kind of situation, I thought of a completely new political system that we could have, one that's not going to be nearly as susceptible to corruption, and one where everybody can have their say and their place in politics. So, and this just came to my mind. I don't know how it came, but it just came to my mind from, I guess, a higher power. And the sort of basics of it, I won't go into it too much in the into the depth that I went to in when I was cogitating it in those sort of wee hours, but basically the whole current system of electing MPs would go, and what would replace it? We'd still have MPs, still have the 650 MPs, but they would be chosen very much like how you're chosen for jury service. And so, you or your neighbour or your friend or whoever it might be called up to be an MP. And the time sort of scale for it would be, not that long, sort of, well, ideally a year. That might be a bit too short, but either 2 or 3 years. So if you get the call, you'd have to go and be an MP for, let's say 2 years, and then you'd be obviously paid for that. I'd suggest probably £50,000 a year, which is about half of what they get now, I think. So it'd be a good saving for sort of the taxpayer, and for most people, getting 50 grand a year for 2 or 3 years would be sort of a massive jump up in current earnings. So, and if it's not, it's tough luck, really, isn't it? You just have to go and do your duty for the country for 2 years anyway. And so that's how all 650 MPs would be chosen. I know it'd just be a random thing, just go through, someone or something would go through the electoral roll and just choose a lot of people at random. And then before they could actually become MPs, they'd undergo a lot of testing and a lot of investigation into their backgrounds to make sure that they're not psychopaths, to make sure they're not corruptible, to make sure they've got a clean police record and they're of good character and all that sort of thing. There'd be sort of psychiatric evaluations to make sure they haven't got sort of psychopathic or sociopathic traits, to make sure they're honest, and also to make sure they're strong-minded, not easily swayed or influenced by people who would want to corrupt them or people who would want to sway them in any way. People who are, we'd want people who are sort of strong-minded and know their mind and know what's right, basically. So imagine having a sort of parliament full of, good, honest, ordinary, everyday, hard-working people, and that'd be a first, wouldn't it? And then, of course, the Prime Minister and the other senior ministers, which I think can be pared right back from what we've got now, instead of having dozens and dozens and dozens of ministers. I think we really only need a Prime Minister and probably half a dozen other ministers who the MPs would kind of choose, when the sort of new lot came in after 2 years. They would sort of look at the best looking candidates and have a little vote to choose the Prime Minister and the other kind of ministers. And I think that would be a really good thing. The more I kind of looked at it during my sleepless night, the more I kind of liked it. It'd mean they couldn't be corrupted. There wouldn't be any points for the powers that shouldn't be to corrupt the politicians, because they'd find it very difficult if they were sort of given the right testing and given the the in-depth checks they'd have to undergo to make sure they weren't corruptible types anyway. But even if after a little while the powers that shouldn't be managed to corrupt a handful of them, well, they're going to be all off in sort of a couple of years' time anyway, and then a whole new lot would come in, so they'd have to start all over again with their corruption and bribery and whatever else they do to get politicians into their pockets. So it'd be almost impossible for them to corrupt politicians, I would have thought. And you might notice one, a couple of holes in this theory. First of all, it'd be who chooses the MPs and who kind of evaluates them. Well, that would have to be something that people more intelligent than me would have to fine-tune, but there'd have to be very rigorous checks and balances on those mechanisms, of course, to make sure the whole thing isn't corruptible. And perhaps the biggest thing is, you might have noticed that from what I've been saying, is that the MPs wouldn't actually be chosen democratically. They'd be just chosen at random, as I say, how people are chosen for jury service. But don't worry, I've thought of how the whole thing can be made democratic. First of all, like I say, they'd just be ordinary people, so it could be very well you or your sort of peers who would be chosen anyway, but they'd always be kind of ordinary, everyday people who would be selected for the most part. And so that kind of make it very much of the people. But of course, again, you as a constituent would be able to lobby your MP in the usual way. I'd also have it so that MPs could be recalled as well, recall elections. So if there was a wrong 'un who got into the houses of the House of Commons, if enough constituents got together to elect them out, they'd be off and possibly imprisoned as well. And then depending on how much of a wrong 'un they are, and then they would sort of then choose another MP through the kind of jury service system. And of course, we could make the whole sort of parliamentary petition thing, be given a lot more teeth as well, so that if there's, we'd have petitions all the time, and if enough people sign the petition, that would mean the MPs would have to debate the what the petition was all about, and bring in sort of new laws relating to those petitions. So we the people would still have very much access to the whole system, and it'd be still very democratic, I think. So I thought that was quite an interesting idea. I don't know, as I say, I don't know how I came up with it, but I came up with it somehow. And I don't know what you think. You'll probably pick holes left, right and centre, but I thought I'd just sort of float one of my crazy little ideas out there and see if it floats or sinks. I don't care either way, because it's very unlikely to ever become a thing. But at least it puts an idea out into the universe, and tell me what you think. So I've rambled on long enough. I'm going to leave it there for now. Back tomorrow. Tim from Fair Play Now. Thanks for watching.